Okay, there we go.
You got it going?
Yeah.
Nice. We rolling, as we say in the industry?
Yeah.
Rolling? All right.
So, first off, I just wanted to know, how old were you when you wanted to be an NHL player?
I wanted to be an NHL player when I was 6. I started playing street hockey with my older cousin and his friends when I was 4. And we lived down around St. Mike's Arena at the time in Toronto. And my older cousin and some of his friends always played street hockey, and one of the goalies who was the main goalie, his name was Lambros, I'll never forget. Lambros, his family ended up moving back to Greece because he had emigrated to Canada, and then they moved back to Greece. He was usually one of the main guys that played net. And they asked me if I wanted to play because I used to hang out and just basically be the ball chaser for them. And they asked me if I wanted to play, and I was like, yeah, of course. So I hopped in the net, man, and I loved it right away. Again, some of these guys, my older cousin is 7 years older than me. So some of these guys were 13, 14, 15, and I was 6. And then they went to register at St. Mike's Arena to play house league hockey there. My older cousin, he went to register, and I wanted to register too. So he came home, he told my aunt and uncle that he wanted to play. They registered him, and I came home and told my dad, I'm like, Dad, I want to play hockey, and I want to be a goalie, and we got to go to St. Mike's Arena. Ian was my cousin. Ian's playing, and I want to play, I want to register. And right from then, I wanted to be an NHL goalie. So my first book that I wrote in grade 1, it was never published, so I don't know, but we had these books that we did up in grade 1, Mrs. Mahar's class. I said that I wanted to play in the NHL, and I wanted to be an NHL goalie. So that was really the start of my aspirations to play in the NHL and become an NHL goalie.
That's great. And I definitely can relate to that, like when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because I always loved sports so much that I don't care who it was, where you were, I wanted to play. I remember as soon as kindergarten was finished, I'm like, I'm out of that playpen area. I was out in the open, just going at it. I remember in grade 1, I was less than 4 feet, and I'm playing basketball with the grade 7s.
Wow.
Soccer with the grade 2s and 3s. Rugby, like anything just that I could do, I was in it.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's the way. I mean, that's for a lot of guys that I've played with, or even people that I know, just friends that don't play, that didn't play professionally. A lot of people, that's how they get into sports, right? It's just from playing in the neighborhood or playing on the driveway or playing pickup basketball or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, that's interesting. You had a similar experience that way. Yeah.
So, was hockey the only sport you played as a kid?
No, I was always a great athlete. I could say that if I do say so myself. I was always a really good athlete. I ran track. I played some baseball. I played basketball. I played basketball into high school up until before I left to go play for the OHL, or go play in the OHL, I should say, until I was drafted. So, I played. I really liked basketball a lot. Basketball probably became my second favorite sport. A guy by the name of Michael Jordan probably had a little bit to do with that. But him, Magic, Larry Bird, I grew up in that era. So those guys, that was my second favorite sport. We won a high school basketball championship in Scarborough with Bethune. I went to Dr. Norman Bethune Collegiate. And my Bantamere, we ended up winning the Scarborough City Championship. So that was a lot of fun. But I was always involved in other sports. So I was always very athletic. Even though I played hockey, that's one thing that they always said. I always had a lot of athleticism. And I think a lot of that, some of it natural, a lot of it hard work, but a lot of that also came from having played other sports growing up. Sports are so fun. But the funny thing is, I had a lot of people that always ask me all the time when I played other sports, hey, are you going to play basketball, or do you want to play this, or do you want to... And I always used to tell them, no, I want to play in the NHL. I want to be an NHL goalie. They're, oh, yeah, but come on, man. You sure you don't want to play ball? You don't want to play... This is fun, but I want to play in the NHL, and I want to be an NHL goalie. So that was my mindset.
That's great.
Thank you.
So, were your parents really supportive of your aspirations growing up?
They were, interestingly enough. One of the great things about growing up in Toronto that I can say, and I think it's similar to growing up in a place like New York or some of the other big cities, Chicago, cities that are very diverse. You have people from different backgrounds, and many of us, our parents emigrated here. So my parents being from Barbados, like a lot of other Caribbean parents, you have a lot of Italians, Greeks, Russians, you name it, Portuguese, different people from different backgrounds. So we were all first generation Canadian, and the thing to do in Canada is to play hockey. I mean, that's, as you know, hockey is a major sport here. So because my sister and I were born here, my cousin and I were born here. We grew up in an environment where everybody played hockey and people played street hockey and they played pond hockey outdoors or on the outdoor rinks in general. And I just pretty much went with that crowd. That's what I was exposed to. I mean, back home in Barbados, my dad played cricket. But at least he was an athlete. But when I told them that I wanted to play hockey, there wasn't any pause, there wasn't any wait, or it wasn't met with sarcasm. Right away they said, okay, well, if you want to play, we'll go down to St. Mike's and we'll register you, whatever, I think it was like $65 at the time for house league, and away we go. And away we went from there. I was very fortunate that they were open-minded and also very supportive, because not every parent is that way. And again, when you're not necessarily exposed to hockey, to that point, my dad didn't really like hockey. And my mom, she was just kind of indifferent, but my dad didn't really like hockey. He'd only been in Canada for 2 years. He'd only been in Canada for about 8 years at that point. And he didn't really take to hockey. It wasn't really his thing. But it's funny, he can't skate a lick, still can't, but he's the biggest hockey freak around. He's always in arenas, even still to this day. He's always watching minor hockey. And he's a very big, we call him the ambassador. He's a very big unofficial ambassador for the game in his own way. And he knows the game so well. So I was very fortunate that my parents were as supportive as they were. And for anybody that's watching this, when you look at the cost involved in playing minor hockey, it's very expensive. It's almost cost prohibitive, to be honest with you. And fortunately enough, my parents both worked very hard. They both worked. My dad worked overtime. My mom worked overtime to be able to pay for those goalie pads and sticks and tournaments in North Bay and tournament in Belleville, tournament in Chicago, one in Kamloops, BC. My parents were very committed. So not only financially and more importantly on a support level, emotionally, but also in terms of the time commitment that it takes to play, they were all in for me.
That is so great to hear from a guy who loves playing sports so much, to know that your parents got your back, even if they didn't even like the sport that much, but they were like, okay, if he's going to go for it, then we're all in.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you enough. I was very fortunate because in my own way, I think with my parents having not grown up here, they were very open-minded because they didn't pretend that they knew everything about the game. And it wasn't a situation where, like some guys that I played with, I was going to go play. I was going to play pro, but I met your mom, so I was going to play pro, but I blew my knee out. There wasn't any of that, and there was no pressure, literally. Like, my dad, I only remember my dad actually not even yelling at me, but asking me what happened on a goal that I let in. We were in Bantam. I was playing for Toronto Redmen. And we finished, I think, 40-something points ahead of the Mississauga Reps that year to get into the playoffs. We only lost one regular season game. We lost to the Marlies that year. And I remember we were down, it was like 7 points to 3, I think, in that first round. And I let in a goal from the far end. And after the game, we get in the car. My dad's like, what's going on? What happened with you on that goal? That's the only time that he ever asked me, like, what happened to you? I let in a goal from the far end, and that was his response. And anyway, we ended up coming back from being down. We ended up winning the 4 straight. We ended up taking the series. But the crazy thing is that just kind of looking back at it, that was a pretty important moment for me, because some of the guys that I played with, their parents weren't as open-minded. They weren't as supportive. They were very harsh on them when they didn't play well. And it's one thing for a lack of effort, because parents do spend a lot of money and time. So if your child's not putting out that effort, by all means, I support you getting on them, because you're making a huge commitment here. But as long as they're playing hard, whether they play well or not, you have to be very open-minded and you have to be very supportive. So again, my parents we just learned as we went along. We learned about hockey, we learned about the different things you needed to do. We were fortunate that a lot of people were so kind to give them a lot of information and say, hey, I know he's a goalie, but he needs to go to power skating right away. This will make him so much better. Take the pads off, bring him to power skating. It's going to really improve his game. Go to goalie school after that. Then people along the way that helped me with training and